mother said she was African, no matter where she stood. You could take her feet off African soil, but you couldn't take her African good. My mother said her mother was the mother of civilization. You could take her name, cause her shame, but you couldn't take that salutation. My mother said I was royalty, crown prince of the motherland. She said I wasn't considered much over here, but back home I was truly grand. My mother said my melanin was a gift and I should be proud. She said the rankness of hue is God's gift to you, your personal protective shroud. My mother said my hair, like Samson's, represented strength. She said one shouldn't hide their race pride, the powers and texture, not length. My mother said many things, and most I put on a shelf. But one thing is clear, I can still hear, son, learn to love yourself. My mother said. That's what my mother said. That's what my mother said. She said I was African. She said Jesus was African. She said Abraham was African. She said Joseph was African. She said Moses was African. Looked nothing like Charlton Heston. She said Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, everybody in the Bible virtually was African. She said everybody on this planet came from Africa. Originally, that's what my mother said.
Moorish Science Temple, Circle 7 divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guidance of his father, God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father, God Allah. First off, I'd like to rise giving praise to Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of everything that ever was, is, and evermore to be. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, who is the founder of our address, the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. Before I read from the Moorish Quran, I'll say the Moorish American prayer, which is Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Drew Ali, amen. What I like to do right now, I like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals that's talked about in Revelations, that none was able to open and read from the sacred pages the messages of purity and love. What you're going to hear me read today, you'll find nowhere else in the world other than here in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I like to read from page 57, chapter 47. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. And it reads on this wise. The inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanite from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father and his family was the second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexim, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from the Asia and the Holy Land joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabited northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion inhabitants extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even unto the present South and Central America, also Mexico and the Atlantic Islands, before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. And the Niger River was dredged by the great Pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extended east from the river Nile west across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nations from the holy land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today, without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his fathers unless his power extend beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. These holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples of the Moorish Science Temple of America, that they will learn to open their meetings and guide them according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Every subordinate temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the Holy Prophet and the Grand Temple. I, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, was sent by the great God Allah to warn all Asiatics of America to repent from their sinful ways before the great and lawful day which is sure to come upon the earth. The time has come when every nation of earth must worship under their own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery, due to the fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors were taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored were given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mothers and fathers and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. Thus, we just had a reading of the Book of the Seven Seals that will be divinely prepared by our Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali for our earthly and divine salvation. Today, we have a blessing for you. Not only do we have a sister that's from Africa, we have a brother that's from Africa too. And his subject matter today will be the Million Man March. Recently, we was on a show together with Bruce. Bruce that has a show before I do. And Bruce is in the process of running for the mayor of this city. And we're going to help him win because we have the method of application. But what I want to do right now, I want to turn the meeting over to my brother and my friend to let you know what God has blessed him with.
Thank you, Sheikh. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, first I want to thank God, Allah, and all of the prophets of the Bible, from Noble Drew Ali to Elijah Muhammad to Minister Farrakhan and to our local ministers that are stepping out in faith and action to support the Million Man movement. It is time, ladies and gentlemen. I say that it is time because when we are being beset by murder, when our children are being shot down in their own backyards, when churches are being assaulted, when young people are being assaulted, not holding a weapon, but a bag of Skittles, we are in a position right now to be able to change the perception of what we understand from the millennials. Millennials are those youth that are born and those youth who do not turn their cheeks. So therefore, in order that we are in constant contact with them in this particular movement. We are going to be in Washington, D.C., but I want to give you a basic understanding of who I am and how I came to Washington, D.C. in 1995. My name is Woodrow Broadnax. I'm known in this community as Mr. Juneteenth. I'm known in the United States of America as Mr. Juneteenth. My position at this point, having ran the Juneteenth here in Oregon in Portland, was to bring the community together, and we were very successful in that. But anytime that you see that we are being successful in bringing everyone together, there's always those who do not want this to happen. And therefore, they work not in concert with us, but against us. As I begin this process of explaining to you who I am, I want you to take into account those who are with us and those who are not. In 1995, I was an addict. I was strung out on heroin. I was tired. I was sick. I was sad. I was beset by all the lies that I have grown up with from the 4th grade, where my white teacher told me that I could be nothing but a shoeshine boy for a white man. These type of insults, these type of suggestions altered my whole perception of who I was. It wasn't until I acted out in pain using narcotics in order to stab down these things that were told to me that I began to really realize that I had been lied to, I had been tricked, but I had not taken it to that depth until I got on the bus. I rode that bus as an addict, and I took with me some narcotics, and I lost them in Pendleton, Oregon, and was sick across the United States of America until I got to Washington, D.C. When I got to Washington, D.C. and stepped off that bus and saw 2 million black men, none fighting, none arguing, all working in consort, it changed and transformed me to the ability to come back to Portland, Oregon, and step out in action in faith. I have ran for city commissioner twice. I have ran for Congress once against Earl Blumenauer. And I ran in the election along whereas Obama and I were the only African Americans in the Oregon voters pamphlet. So I take credence to that. It was, and I give it to the Million Man March. But be very clear about one thing. This, in 1995, was a call for men to stand up and come to Washington, D.C. so that we could define how we could change our condition. This year, after all of the things that I've expressed to you, and all of the murders, all of the assaults against us, we are being called back to Washington, D.C., but not as 2 million. We are being called back with the hope of establishing 4 million, because the family is involved at this point. This young lady to my left is involved at this point. We will all be on the National Mall. I will be returning to the National Mall, and I will raise the Juneteenth flag. That's a national flag. And if you've heard Moorish signs, our Sheikh speak about nationalism. There is not a nation on this planet that is called a national that does not have its flag. So at the time of the Million Man March, or Million Man Movement, I will be in Washington, D.C. I will be raising that flag over the national capital. It's an opportunity for us to stand up and express our nationality, express our concerns, express our relationships with one another, because in this entire world, it is built on relationships. Relationships that are established by traditions that were taken from slaves many, many, many moons ago in order to change them and to assimilate them. At the Million Man Movement, we are going to establish those traditions as a people that will make us successful in this fight against racism, in this fight against all of the, all of the misconceptions of what it is to be an American and to be in America. If you saw the recent interview with Jindal, the governor of Florida, he said this regarding immigration. He said, I don't mind people coming to America, but they must be assimilated. They cannot come here and speak their language. They cannot come here and practice their culture. They cannot come here to America and not pledge allegiance. They cannot come here to America and be anything but an American only after they have accepted our assimilation of their history. So what I'm saying to you is that what man can exist when his history is stripped from him and a false history is put in his place. We don't bear reverence to the 4th of July. The 4th of July, we were still enslaved. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? We were still slaves. We have nothing to gratify our participating in the 4th of July. It wasn't until June 19th, 1865, and that was at the behest of the Confederacy and the Union in their fight to stop the secession of the Confederacy from the Union, where Abraham Lincoln then presented the Emancipation Proclamation. The true name is Freedom Day, and how that was established as Juneteenth, as they were given the information to General Gordon Granger in Galveston, Texas, which was the last stronghold of slavery. They took this information to the plantation owner, not to the slaves. They took it to the plantation owners and they told them, tell your slaves that they are free. And once they heard the word that they were free, children left home saying, Mama, Daddy, I'm gone now. You understand? I was free now. And they left their abodes and they went across the United States of America on foot, walking for 2 and 3 years, stopping in every city along the way and spreading the message of freedom. It was then that those who were against it began to lynch them, to kill them, to stop the couriers. So they created a code name. That code name is Juneteenth. The true name for emancipation from President Lincoln was Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, or Independence Day, but they co-opted the concept of independence in establishing the 4th of July. So we don't take a back seat. We stand aside them with Emancipation Day, with Freedom Day, with our Independence Day. And we began to process of trying to describe that in this place in which we are now, there are two freedoms. There are two dissect freedoms that we must look at. One is the freedom of the enslaved. The other is the freedom of the Europeans. Cinco de Mayo is not an American holiday. It cannot be considered an American holiday. It does not include the sacrifices of us in order to be able to move as an American holiday. And I want to make that very clear. It is a marketable tool. It's very good, and we find that in our local Juneteenth, we find the same concept. People want money. They don't want to sacrifice. They don't want to work hard to change our conditions of our children. We have those blacks here in Portland that right now work for the bureaucrats and are bureaucrats. And their job is not to see Juneteenth go forward. It's to demarginalize it, to diminish it until it disappears. But it will never disappear as long as Mr. Juneteenth is in your midst. I'm saying this. We are going to implement at the Million Man Movement an opportunity to create relationships that you could never imagine, to see things that we never thought that we would see. I believed when I was younger, and before I went to the first 1995 Million Man March, that we hated one another because we were told that we hated one another. The black, the yellow, the brown, all of these were used to cause confusion. And there's no God in confusion. So the journey up until this point right now is very, very serious and very, very critical for you and I and for our children's sake. As I stated before, we're talking about children that are a part of the millennials. My generation was X generation. We were taught to be slapped in one cheek and turn the other. Many, many, many moons ago, until the millennials who refused to be slapped on one side of their face and turn the other cheek. You can witness it each and every day, some travesty. And they're not advertising or putting on TV all the things that are going on in regards to the revolt against this type of behavior from them on us. Anytime they do it, it's okay. They get rich. They become millionaires when they kill one of us in public. But when we are monsters. We are creatures. We are inhuman. So we need to dispel what that man does and what that man says and all of his cronies here in Oregon, here in Portland. We need to dispel those people. I support the Juneteenth here in Oregon. I think It came from me, and it came from Sister Clara Peoples. We are commissioners with National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. Clara, having been owed the responsibility, was put on me to make the Juneteenth arise. And so I think people like Larry Matthews, I think people that have come out in support of and stand up and made it as great as it was. We brought the first carnival into Juneteenth, and at the corner of what is now Rosa Parks, but Portland Boulevard and Martin Luther King. And we moved up and down the corridor with the Juneteenth celebration each year until we settled with Brother Larry Matthews. So we have a fine opportunity to change our condition, a fine opportunity to be able to meld together and make a strong stand against all of this abhorrent behavior. I thank Mr. Farrakhan. I thank Elijah Muhammad for allowing us to be able to stand up and come together and to be able to come up with solutions to our problem. Solutions that we as a people is based on our nationalism and our ability to be able to move forward together. So we have a finite situation going on here. And I want to dispel and encourage everyone in the city of Portland that hears my voice, everyone in the city of Portland that is concerned about Ferguson, everyone in the city of Portland that is concerned about Trayvon Martin, everyone in the city of Portland that is concerned about being shot down in your own backyard with a bag of Skittles in your hand and a soda pop. We are at a critical time where we need to be able to accept the leadership of our youth. And I'm not calling for armed resistance or anything like that, but I'm saying that this is a new time. It desires new motivations. It desires new tactics in order for us to move forward and not be stymied. Because we have to understand this more than anything in the world. The man understands that we are going to be here but a short time on this planet. And what we do on this planet can change the whole dynamic of our youth and our future. If we do nothing and allow ourselves to be continually desecrated here in Oregon, here in the United States of America, then we are not considered to be anything else but expendable, collateral damage. So now's our opportunity to change that particular concept, because trust me, there will be no fear in the Million Man March. The sun will shine. It will shine so greatly because this is of God. This is a God-sent message to each and every one of us. And I know many of you are afraid of prophets. It is in the Bible. He is the most hated person on the planet because he tells the truth. And the thing that has been lacking from our description of who we are traditions that define our future and where we are going. That is the tradition that has been stripped from us from the shores of Africa, our culture. And we have been assimilated. Now we must go back and reestablish within our children, within our nation, within our people, respect, responsibility, accountability, productivity, so that we might have peace amongst ourselves. And once we have peace among ourselves, then we can deal with all of the outside evils that affect us all as a family, and not separated, not destroyed, not in any way assimilated in the idea of nationalism, assimilated in the idea of fear. Many of you fear that, oh, wow, as in 1995, oh, I'm not going to the Million Man March because if I go to the Million Man March, they're going to drop a bomb on all of us because they got us all in one place. Not so. Allah would not allow that. God would not allow that. For 4 million of us to stand strong and not the light shine upon us, but to stand strong as collateral damage, no. But again, I say this to you. If you don't stand up for something, you'll go for anything. And it is time for us to stand up as men. It is time for us to have our families around us and stand together and break this cycle of division that they have created and wedged into us. We're looking at a United States of America that in the future, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be blended. Blended as our President of the United States is. Blended as my grandchildren are. Blended so that this melanin that you see right now soon goes away. Once it's gone away, there will be a new N-word, and they will be lighter than you, and some of them will be white. We have to prepare ourselves for this type of movement. And we have to instill in them these traditions so they know who they are and they know where they're going and they know where their alignments. There's not going to be a race war. Don't get me wrong. There's a war that's going on, and that war has been projected by the United States of America against black people for the last 400 years. So when we come together, don't let their statements of fear in regards to us being together change your whole perception. So now is our time. Now is the time for us to move as a people. Now is the time for us to move and not be fearful of what the consequences are. Like I said, we're only here for a short while. And if you are afraid to step out, and if you are afraid to come to the Million Man March, if you're afraid to bring your children to the Million Man March, then you're falling right into the trap of which this man has devised for us from the beginning of time. It's time to be strong. It's time to stand up, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to attend and be a part of the Million Man movement. Now, my position, as I said before, I'm going to be there on October 8th. I will be raising the Juneteenth flag over the national capital of the United States of America, and I will be creating the National Juneteenth Society of America. And the purpose of the National Juneteenth Society of America is to create unity. We are now talking about bringing all the Juneteenths together. For too long, we have been related to as fractured. Fractured because one won't speak to the other, much like the government. We follow the prescripts of the government. The government police force won't talk to the FBI. The FBI won't talk to the CIA. It's the same way in what they have established in us, where one Juneteenth won't talk to the Juneteenth over here. One Juneteenth won't talk to the Juneteenth over here. When they all are working in behalf of being able to lift up the people, why should we not talk with each other? Why should we be fearful in Washington, D.C.? Why should we be fearful in our own homes here in the city of Portland, Oregon, that has been highly recognized as one of the whitest cities in the United States, which gentrification consistently destroys us and moves us farther and farther out from the center of this community? I was driving down the street a minute ago and saw a big sign. That sign said, "This is affordable housing for this affordable community." I thought it was an insult. You have one big building that's going to house as affordable housing for this community, but there's no voice. But I'm giving it voice today. I'm saying, no, if you're going to do this, then you must do it on a consistent and on a growth pattern, so that it's not just one building or two buildings. It's not hidden that this is affordable housing in one of our high rises, because it exists there as part of the program. In order for them to build in an area, they have to have so many units of affordable housing. So having left us behind, now they're talking about a building that is going to be totally affordable housing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been tricked for so long. We have had our own people trick us and turn against us for the almighty dollar. And I don't down people behind their push for money. But money is not the end all. It's an illusion. It's an opportunity to destroy us. It's an opportunity to keep us apart. It's an opportunity to marginalize from the rich to the middle class to the poor and create a division when we all should be taking care of one another, which are African Americans, which are black. But because of the conditions that we live in today, because of the racism that is prevalent today, we have no other choice but to join together, because this fight is God's fight. And he's going to do the fighting for us, but we have to have action. We have to step out in faith and believe that this is our calling to come together so that we can manifest for our children, again, the first African-American president. We can affect more African-American congressmen. We can affect more individuals in our community to take leadership. I'm talking about young people. Now, I don't mean to be, critical regarding what has occurred here in Oregon very much in regards to the Juneteenth and its presentations each year. We have a powerhouse in the Scanner newspaper. Scanner newspaper is a Seattle paper. If you pick up the Scanner newspaper and read through it, you'll find much about Seattle, very little about Portland. But it was brought here in the early years to offset the Black Panther Party, who had the Black Panther Party paper. And there were forces that saw that maybe this gentleman by the name of Bernie Foster up in Seattle can come down here and we'll set him up and we'll offset the Panther paper. The only true newspaper here that deals with this community is the Portland Observer. But because of their connection with the federal government, that is the Scanner, they have a lockdown in terms of their information that they give out. So, having said that, we need to change who we are aligned with. We need to support those who support us. And if you're black and you're against us, then we need to boycott you as well as boycott the rest of those who are promoting this division that's out there, that are putting out information that is false, that is accusing individuals of things based on what the man tells them to accuse them of, and allows them to be able to come to us and keep us marginalized. So I'm very distressed in that particular piece. But that's okay. It's okay for them. It is not okay for me. It's a fight that they're asking for. And the beginning of that fight started in 1995 at the Million Man March. And it is not going to be consummated by the 2015 Million Man movement. But every movement begins with the first step. In 1995 was the first step. In 2015, now we're changing feet, and we are marching. We're not marching down the streets. We're not going through all this chaos. We're going to go, and as a people, based on those principles that I discussed of respect, responsibility, accountability, productivity, peace in ourselves, peace in our families, peace in our homes, so that we can dispel all of the evilness that has been put upon us. I thank Minister Farrakhan. I thank Noble Drew Ali. I thank Elijah Muhammad. And I thank those many ministers here in this community. The hearts are good. But we live in a condition of which they live in conditions. I don't know how many of our local churches will say, we're going to create a bus and put our young people on. But that's true prevention. The prevention that we see at the Youth Gang Task Force, where mothers are being utilized to promote snitching, to gather information, is what that is all about. So we need to disband the Youth Gang Task Force. Let them do their thing. Let us just start to take our own youth in. Let us try to implement within them these traditions so they can assume the leadership and take us into the future. Like I said, we're only going to be here a short while. You and I. Now it's time to instill in our youth a responsibility that allows them to assume our future, to be able to establish a firm ground that we can stand upon, so that we no longer stand upon quicksand, so that we no longer stand upon the white man and his machinations, so long we don't no longer stand on Safeway. Yes, I said Safeway. In that store, you have food that has been on the shelf for over 100, that has a lifespan of 100 years. How can it be good for you and I? We need to grow our own food, as Minister Farrakhan has said. We need to create our own substance of what we take in, because what you take in is what you become. And if it's wholesome and it's rich food, then you need to take in that and drink water instead of alcohol and beer and all the other mechanisms. You know, I understand the situation in regards to those who are co-opted to civil rights struggle. When I talk about co-opting the civil rights struggle, I'm talking about the gay agenda. It would be great if it was not that even within the gay agenda, there is racism. Yes, it is racism. Just because they all like the same thing doesn't mean that they like the same thing. So in order to offset that and offer the opportunity of true livability amongst all of us, we need to be able to put the right script on the civil rights struggle, because everyone that has grabbed onto the civil rights struggle since the death of Martin Luther King and a non-description of what he saw over that mountaintop, now has created their own mountaintop. All but us, and are supported. They are rich gays. There are people that are out there that want to push their agenda upon us, even in our schools. I disapprove of that. I think that we need to be taught about ourselves. And so I went to the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., the Capitol, and I went in there and queried them in regards to how come I am not taught about myself. And this is their response to us. Oh, no, we're not going to teach you about you. It's the assimilation process. We want you to come do the Pledge of Allegiance. We want you to come and be like us. We want to assimilate you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been assimilated enough. It's time for us to get back to our own nationalism. It's time for us to start listening to Noble Drew Ali. It's time for us to pick up our national flag. It's time for us to be recognized as a force in these United States of America of good and not racism. Because racism was only established after we came to these shores. Before we came to shores, there was no racism. But as it was established from slavery, racism is still alive and well. And unless we do this, unless we make the sacrifice, that's October the 10th, that's a Saturday in Washington, D.C. Tune in if you can't get there. Come if you can get there, because I promise you, no man, no woman that appears at the Million Man Movement will be stuck in Washington, D.C. They will be assured that they will return home, and not by me, but by those masses of individuals that are there for what is right. If you make the sacrifice to come, you will be blessed. If you make the sacrifice to come, you will stand with many of us that you have never seen before, but they look just like you.
Teach, man, teach.
You will see your brothers and you will see your sisters, and you will identify that we have been separated and scattered in the diaspora. And now we have an opportunity to come together, and the Spirit of God is in the Million Man Movement. You will see your brother, you will see your true sister, because the women and the children are invited to come and learn not to make the same mistakes that we have made before. So we have an arduous task ahead of us, but God will make that task disappear and will make it manifest itself. So you don't hear about it in the media right now. You don't hear anybody talking about the Million Man Movement because they don't want to talk about it. The government and everyone wants to keep it quiet, because if we keep it quiet, then they won't know and they won't go. But we're shouting out from the top of our lungs, the Million Man Movement. We're talking about unification of the Juneteenth. That is primarily because everything that you see on that day, the walls of Washington, D.C., the landscape, everything, we created it. We created that. And it is ours. But we have done it at the behest of racism. We have done it on the behest of being assimilated. We have done it for money, greed, hunger, the next Cadillac, the next home, 3,000 square feet, all of this. These things are invaluable to us, because when we pass, the only thing we're going to take with us is our body. And everything will be left behind. But if we attend the Million Man March, we will leave behind a spirit that will grow, and it will continue to grow and manifest itself, and it will be our spirit. Let me sort of try to define something to you. The greatest Holocaust on this planet was the bringing of slaves here to America. And that grave site is the Atlantic Ocean. Let me symbolize it in this way. You may understand. A ship is going through loaded with slaves. Behind it comes the British police. Now, when they see that they're being chased by the police, what do they do with their cargo? They throw it in the ocean. Sharks were not even man-eaters until these slave ships dumped us into the ocean. Many of us even jumped without even being pushed into the ocean because of the stench and the funk. that existed on those slave ships as they brought us from Africa to the Carolinas or to Galveston or whatever port of entry that they came through, and they deposited many of us on the islands on the way. So we have a great history that we need to recant, but not for the negativism of it, but to say that we are here. We're not invisible. We're not fodder for you to destroy. We are here to build our families. We are here to make America be more than just a housing where people want to come and have free sex and free drugs and all of this stuff that they put out there for us to keep us separated, to keep us confused. You know what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Where else can you go? Now today, many of our young people have been sent to prison for marijuana. Now it's legal. Now you can go into a corner store and buy all you want. This is not the mechanisms of our people. This is the mechanisms of a government that has decided to go ahead and allow this to happen so they continue to control us. This is what we're up against. Evilness that you cannot even imagine. And the only way that we can dispel this evilness is with the total family, so that we can establish what's good for us, so we can establish what's good for our children, so we can put traditions in our children based on the movement. There was tradition of respect, so our children respect us and respect their surroundings, respect their nation, respect the earth, respect and fall against the fossil fuel and everything else that is destroying us. Responsibility is our responsibility, and the responsibility of youth in the future to be able to manifest themselves and take us on as a responsibility in our old age. And I'm not talking about just to put us in a nursing home as we grow old. No, we are their responsibility as they are our responsibilities in being birthed. Accountability. We need to stop lying to one another. We need to stop basing our lives on a lie. And believing in people that are working on the behest of money as opposed to spirit, to bring the celebration of Juneteenth together and break the fracturing that it exists in today. That any white man can push a button and say, oh, these black people are fractured, they're Juneteenth, but they're fractured. No, my job that I've taken on, that I've been committed with, is to bring unity to the Juneteenth society, to all of the Juneteenths, so that we create a national council, that we sit down and we have our own Congress. We have our own leadership. We have our own designs for our youth, so they can lead us they can lead us further. Because if we do not, then we fall to the same racism that has been prevalent in our lives for too long. So I reach out to each and every one of you. Don't be afraid. Make the sacrifice. They're going to make sure that you get back home, and you're going to get back home safely. There will be no bombs and no danger, no anger, none of that in Washington, D.C. Liquor stores will be closed on the day of the Million Man March movement. There will be no alcohol consumed that would upset the landscape of what we are trying to do and the message that is being given to us by not only Minister Farrakhan, but those others who speak. I'm saying this. I don't want the President of the United States, Barack Obama, to speak at the Million Man movement. I don't want Jesse Jackson to speak. I don't want Al Sharpton to speak. I don't want any of those people to speak. The only person that I want to hear on that day is the words that are coming from the prophet and the words that are coming from those who are like-minded in the vision that he has established for us to be able to move forward. Because as we sit here, if we do nothing, we remain nothing. So I appeal to you. I appeal to your children. I appeal to prevention. If we are tired of all of this crazy stuff, the shootings and things that are going on amongst ourselves, then we cannot rely on the Youth Gang Task Force to intervene for us. We must establish our own Youth Gang Task Force and have those youth not maligned or marginalized, but join on with us for peace. This is our opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot squander it, push it to the side. It's an opportunity. And I'll say this. In the last 1995, the Million Man March, people said that it did nothing. That's a lie. It changed me. and it will change you to do something, because crime went down after the Million Man March. Murder went down after the Million Man March. All of these atrocities went down after 1995, but the white man chose to say, oh, we're responsible for it because we created get tough on crime. Lock them up. Turn them back into slaves. Keep our foot on their necks. We no longer can allow them to do this to us. We can no longer allow them to do it to our future. I will be gone, and many of us will be gone. And what will we leave behind? What legacy can we leave behind? It has to be established today in your hearts as you listen to me. Those traditions that I spoke about, you need to grab hold of them and put them inside of you, and then take a look at where you've been and where you're going. So again, my opportunity is to be able to say that my job is to unify, not as to unify and be that unifier for the national Juneteenth groups that exist. Together, we are powerful. Fragmented is where they want us to be. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to what I'm saying to you. That I'm not speaking to you from just a thought. I'm speaking to you from my heart, from heart to heart, from my blood. When I see things happening in this United States of America that affect me, that has me marching down the street against all of these atrocities, then there has to be another way. And we will develop that way. We will commune with each other, and we will develop a plan that will be so solid that we will no longer have to deal with the racism that exists in these Americas. So I want you to take the time to look inside yourselves and understand, as an African American, as a white man, as a Hispanic, what do you want for your family, or do you want to repeat all of these atrocities from color to color, from generation to generation, from culture to culture, as a putting an end to it and standing up as a man, or standing up as a woman, or standing up as a family, and destroying all these myths of how we hate each other and work against each other. Let's work together. Let's make the Million Man movement be the beginning of a new life for all of our children and for all the things that we want. And what we want more than anything is to serve God. Nothing else matters. Everything else is an illusion. If we don't dedicate ourselves to serve a master that has looked out for us and has kept us on this planet for a reason, then our lives have been squandered and we have become collateral damage, and he can only call us home. But before he calls me home, I am going to make a difference, as I've always done since the Million Man March. So again, this is an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to be transformed. Take on your responsibilities. Work with your brother in Chicago. Work with your brother in New York. Work with your brother in Texas. Work with your brother all over the United States, and let us come together and stand as nationals. Let us develop our own embassies so that we are considered more than just N-word. And I'm not going to elaborate in that particular area. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Teach, brother.
Yeah. So this is our opportunity. There will never be another opportunity in our lifetime, in my lifetime, but there's an opportunity in the lifetime of our young people. And I want to believe that my spirit is in these youth that are moving forward when I'm gone. It's a legacy. We can't be the downtrodden all of our lives. Stand up, black man. Stand up, black woman. Stand up, Hispanic. Stand up, white man. Stand up for what is right. And let us sojourn in Washington, D.C. on October 10th, 2015. I got my ticket. I'm going to be there because I have a reason to be there. And you have a reason to be there. So I want to thank each and every one of you that have been listening. And I don't mean to become so impassioned, but this is a passionate subject for me. It has been an observation. I am a scientist of racism. I'm a scientist of how we have been marginalized. I'm a scientist in who to listen to and who not to listen to. And of all the individuals, other than God and Allah, Noble Drew Ali, Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan has called this march, this movement. And I'm going to respond to it. And not because I'm a Christian, not because I'm a Baptist, not because I'm a Protestant, not because I'm anything, but it is right to do. Dispel all of these religions, come together and be religious, because when 3 or more of us are together, God is in the center. And if there's 4 million of us in Washington, D.C., do you not believe that God is in the center of it? And it will be a sunshiny day. The clouds will part. And the word will be heard. Yes, and we will go back to our communities, not separated, not marginalized, not divided.
That's right.
We will go back to our communities, and we will change our youth to take the leadership role that we need so greatly. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to listen. Again, my name is Woodrow Broadnax. In these United States of America, I'm known as Mr. Juneteenth.
Yes, yeah.
I am the creator of the National Juneteenth Society of America with my brothers and sisters in California. And we're going to branch out and reach out, and we're going to register people under that flag. When you see that flag on the National Mall, come and put your name down. Come and donate to this cause to establish a unification amongst us all. I want to thank you for your time. Again, my name is Mr. Juneteenth.
Islam, praise Allah. We want to thank you, brother. And it's always an honor. You know, when you was here talking this evening, it reminded me of Jesus. Because, you know, Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David, looking just like you and me. And they was talking about Jesus at the Last Supper. And a lot of us think that the Last Supper was physical food. But what you did this evening, you fed all of us here in Portland, Oregon. And you gave us food for thought. Now, I'm not going to say anything about black misnomer. I'm not going to say any of that. I just want to thank you. Because here in Portland, Oregon, we can't really be concerned about what's going on in California. We can't be concerned what's going on in D.C. We got to be concerned what's going on right here in Portland, Oregon. Now, you ran for office before.
Absolutely.
The brother that comes on before me, Bruce, he said he's in the process of running again for mayor. I seen on television today, had a show on by a brother by the name of Charles, and what's his last name? Yeah, Charles Bishop.
Okay.
And he had his wife on, Shamika, and she was talking about autistic children. And I remember when I first got here, I was coming out of Pastor Smith's house because Pastor Smith has a grandson that has autism. And I met Charles Bishop's wife because they was taking us to the Holy Day. But what's taking place is they have something called a 501c3. And a lot of us here in Portland is not conscious of that. And a lot of people don't like dealing with that because they can look in and see how much money they done gave you. But if you don't misappropriate any money, then you could use this 501c to give brothers and sisters in this city a job. So if they get in contact with me when they do, we can get this proposal written up. Ask for certain grants because there's money here. And we as a people don't know anything about the money because we don't know the Europeans is getting all the money. So we could provide for our own people right here.
Ourselves.
You know, we don't have to work for anyone. We could work for ourselves. So all we have to do is get these 501c3s, write the proposals up, go to the government and get the money.
That's right.
And that's what we're about here. And that's what it's about. Brother Bruce will say he's running for mayor. Well, a few weeks when you and I was on the show with him, we talk about the buses. We talking about buses that we can line up and take all the people to the poll. That's why Marion Barr in Washington, D.C. was so sharp. because he had Don't Smoke Your Brothers and a lot brothers and sisters and a lot of other different organizations backing up, taking the buses to the poll, and that's how he won the elections. So these are some of the things that we have to do. We have to stop looking to somebody else.
Yes, right.
We have to stop functioning on what the Europeans are doing. When you go to the Million Man March in Washington, D.C., you will have brothers and sisters from all persuasions, all
Absolutely.
perspectives.
Absolutely.
And if we get together, dialogue with one another, check on this information, no telling what we could do as a people.
right.
And I'd like to give you honor.
Thank you.
Not only because you come on the show and you talk well, you always look well.
Thank you.
You know, and in this community, this is more so what's needed. We as a people need to step out there and do some things. Right. So if this brother's running for mayor and he's a part of your family, we need to get with him.
That's right.
And once we get with him and support him, and once he win, because we're going to make sure he win. Once he win, then he's going to reach back and help do some things, you know, for us as a people. Now, he's running as a Republican. I don't care if you're running for a Republican or a Democrat, because we know what Malcolm said about the Democrat and the Republican. He said they're both dogs. This is what Malcolm said. So we're not hung up in that. But what we need to do right here in Portland, being it's only 2% of us, we got to find means of accumulating finances so we as a people will have a job. Because, man, you got more people that's homeless here in Portland than I've seen all across the country. Yeah. So before we close out, brother, is there anything else that you want to say to our listening audience? Because we are honored to have this kind of mindset that you have, this kind of spirit. I heard a brother on the show earlier, on Bruce's show. He was saying all these young brothers that's in the gang, he said what the police need to do and what they need to go on there, take them all out the houses and take them out here in Portland. And man, that was so disrespectful, because he looked just like you and me. But I understood him because I understand mental slavery. So it's always an honor, a pleasure, moreover a duty to be able to come before our Portland listening audience to let you hear the mindset of those that you have in your midst. Praise Allah and honor the Prophet. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple. Know yourself and your Father God Allah, that you may learn to love instead of hate. Every man needs to worship under his own vine and fig tree, the uniting of Asia. Ye are the children of one Father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother has given ye suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brother, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thine own blood. If thy brother's in adversity, assist him. If thy sister's in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. The Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen.
Amen.
My man.
Wait, I got here southeast.
Wait. We probably got another 30 seconds. You going to Southeast?
Yeah, I mean, just basically, it took 600.
My mother said, my mother said she was African, no matter where she stood. You could take her feet off African soil, but you couldn't take her African good. My mother said her mother was the mother of civilization. You could take her name, cause her shame, but you couldn't take that salutation. My mother said I was royalty, crown prince of the motherland. She said I wasn't considered much over here,